The anime begins with the farewell of two childhood friends, Hayato Kirishima and Haruki Nikaido, who promise to always be friends. 7 years after that promise, Hayato moves to the city with his sister, Himeko, and begins his life at a new school. The first day of school after they move, Himeko gets out of bed and panics, asking him why he didn't wake her up earlier, since it's already past 7:30. Hayato calmly focuses on preparing breakfast and reminds her that this isn't like home and they live close to school now, so she's got plenty of time. Himeko admits that she forgot about that, though she's clearly relieved, and even says that she'll curl her hair in that case. Hayato tells her that she should be herself and tell everyone that they're from the country, but she rejects the idea and explains that first impressions are what define a transfer student. That means her entire high school life is on the line, so she can't just take it lightly. Putting that aside, Hayato simply enjoys the view of the city, knowing that Haruki is somewhere in this city too, since he moved to Tokyo when they were kids. Once at school, Hayato introduces himself to his class, saying that he's from a place called Sukanos, where they can run into monkeys, deer, and boars on the street, a real country bumpkin. As expected, his classmates laugh at his description, creating a light atmosphere. The teacher then tells him that his seat is the one next to Nikaido, and Hayato can't help but think that that was Haruki's last name as well. If he were here, he's sure he'd probably hit on her saying that they have the same last name and then crash and burn. Once he takes his seat, he politely greets Nikaido, but for some reason, when she greets him back, it all suddenly feels strangely familiar. At the end of the first class, many of his classmates surround him to ask him things, wanting to know if the stuff he said when he introduced himself was true. Hayato explains that they moved to the city because his father got transferred all of a sudden. He mentions that where he lived before, in the mountains, only 4 buses came through each day and there was more livestock than there were people. Hayato even admits that he's never been around this many people before, and it was always chickens and goats instead, so this is kind of new for him. Everyone's surprised to hear that, and one of his classmates asks him if he had a girlfriend back home. Hayato denies it and explains it was hard enough just finding people his own age, but he clarifies that he did have one friend and that he was a really great guy. They do stuff like jump from the bridge into the river together, or climb trees in the mountains that they couldn't get back down from. Hayato smiles and admits that, more than a friend, he was kind of like an angry monkey or some kind of weird creature. For some reason, as soon as he says that, Nikaido breaks the pencil in her hand, surprising everyone. She nervously assures them she's fine, explaining that the pencil must have been defective or something. Nikaido then smiles with contained anger, mentioning the way he talks about someone who was such a close friend. Hayato laughs and clarifies that he only says it because they were so close, but Nikaido doesn't say anything else and simply looks away. She keeps this behavior towards him during the rest of the day, so Hayato assumes she's in a bad mood, but he wonders if it's because of anything he did. He tries to ask her about it during lunch, but one of her classmates calls her for something, and he misses his opportunity. The guy sitting next to him, Moriiori, tells him that he's impressed that he's already trying to put the moves on Nikaido, though he admits he can understand how he feels. Mori tells him that he can chase after Nikaido if he wants, but he warns him that she's a real prize, because on top of her looks, she's really sweet and also a good student, not to mention that the sports teams are always fighting over her, and that she's even being begged to do something for the student council right now. Mori warns him that all the guys were after her in middle school, but he's never heard of her falling for anyone, so he shouldn't get his hopes up. Hayato quickly clarifies that he wasn't even thinking about it, though he now understands that she's totally different from Haruki Nikaido, starting with the fact that they're the opposite gender. However, after hearing that, he's even more confused than before, and he doesn't understand why she's giving off such bad vibes towards him. During lunch, he tries to find a place away from everyone to eat in peace, but ends up encountering Mitake Minamo, a girl who is checking some crops in the school garden, wondering why they are not bearing fruit. Hayato decides to approach her and recognizes the crops because of their flowers, so he asks her if they're pollinated. He informs her that zucchini won't grow very big if she doesn't pollinate the female flower, and that she should also trim the extra flowers from the eggplant and prune the shishido a bit so that they can grow a lot better. Mitake is surprised by how much he knows, so Hayato explains that he helped out on the fields a bunch back in the country. She mentions that this is for the gardening club and asks him if he really thinks their garden is that strange. Hayato tells her that it looks alright to him, since they say tomatoes were originally grown as decoration anyway, and he actually likes flowering vegetables. Mitake seems happy with his answer, but Nikaido suddenly emerges from the shadows to ask them what they think they're doing. She kindly informs Mitake that the fertilizer she requested was delivered to the club building, so Mitake decides to go get it right away. Once they're alone, Nikaido accuses Hayato of having the nerve to try to hit on girls on his first day here. She asks him if that's the kind of girl he's into, but Hayato clarifies that he wasn't hitting on her, and that she just reminded him of someone. After Nikaido asks him who she reminds him of, there is a long silence, but Hayato ends up confessing that Mitake reminds him of the sheep at Uncle Jen's house. Nikaido surprisingly remembers this, and says that they're the sheep Jen raised to eat the weeds, but then lost his temper at after they started eating all the vegetables instead. Hayato confirms it and admits that when he saw that head of shaggy hair lounging around all those vegetables, it immediately reminded him of that. He suddenly stops talking when he realizes what she just said, since she shouldn't know about that if she wasn't there. Nikaido sees his face of confusion and simply laughs, slapping slapping his back and saying that he's really mean for talking to Mitake only for that. Hayato asks her to take it easy on him, and without thinking, he calls her Haruki, which brings him to realize who she really is. Not denying it, she simply smiles mischievously, enjoying his confusion, but returns to her perfect girl facade when one of her classmates appears. Hayato is left completely speechless, and he's unable to think of anything else for the rest of the day, realizing that the girl who sits next to him in class is his childhood friend, Haruki. He's still confused though, because the Haruki he remembers was totally different, and he was pretty sure he was a boy. Once it's finally time to go home, Haruki makes up an excuse to have Hayato all to herself without anyone suspecting a thing. She doesn't give him any explanation and simply holds his hand as she takes him somewhere. Hayato doesn't know where they're going, but he picks up the pace and starts running with her as they laugh, remembering the old times and realizing she hasn't changed a bit. When they get to her place, Haruki asks him to make himself at home and clarifies that she's the only one there anyway, so he can relax. Hayato hesitates a little at first, but they end up getting comfortable in her room, so she doesn't waste any time and asks him what he was saying about a monkey creature thing this morning. Unable to make an excuse, he apologizes and simply tells her that he owes her a favor for that, like old times. Haruki is easily convinced by that, so she just laughs and admits that sure brings back memories. Hayato agrees, since they both owe each other many favors, but he tells her that this thing she's doing isn't fair. Haruki doesn't deny it and explains that she's been through a lot, which is why she camouflages like this. Putting that aside, she decides to challenge him to a video game match, since they haven't faced off in a while. Time flies by after spending the day together, and Hayato later meets up with his sister. Himeko informs him that she got a message from their father, and that he said he's going to go see their mother again tonight. After telling him that, she asks him to get a cell phone already, since she feels like an answering machine. Hayato simply laughs and apologizes, asking her what she wants for dinner tonight. However, as he's about to walk away, Himeko suddenly stops him with a sad smile, saying that today she's in the mood for one of his decadent Hamburg steaks. Hayato reminds her that those take a lot of work, but she insists and tells him that she'll help him in that case. Knowing her well, Hayato pats her head and reassures her, saying that their mother changed hospitals for a reason. Once they feel better, they go back home to have dinner, and Himeko asks him if something good happened to him today, since he's been grinning all this time. Hayato confesses that he ran into Haruki at school and that they sit next to each other now. Himeko gets really excited and asks him how Haruki looks now, but Hayato decides not to mention the fact that she's a girl, so he just tells her that he hasn't changed a bit. He mentions that he's even stronger and pushier than he used to be, like he evolved from a monkey into a gorilla or something. Himeko just laughs at that, though she admits that she would like to see him again. The next day at school, Hayato decides to help Mitake with the crops, pollinating the zucchini flowers. Mitake observes what he's doing with wonder, confessing that she always thought the vegetables would just start growing on their own. She explains that she thought that the stamen and pistil would do the deed and come together to reproduce, and then their children would be alive, and then they could eat them. Hayato wasn't expecting such an explanation, but he decides to go along with it and tells her that's exactly what happens. Just then, Mitake realizes she said a little too much, and that it probably sounded really weird. She instantly turns bright red, and Haruki shows up just then, asking Hayato what in the world he's doing to her. Mitake panics and simply runs away, leaving him to his fate, but Haruki just laughs and admits that she really does look like the sheep that ran away when Jen got angry. Hayato tells her that if she was watching all this time, she could have said something and saved him, since the way it looks now, it seems like he said something weird. Haruki clarifies that she has her own reputation and image to protect here at school, so there was nothing she could do. Later during class, Hayato notices that a lot of students come to Haruki for help, and he remembers what she said about camouflage. He knows she must have her reasons, so he doesn't question it, because he's sure she'll explain when the time comes, since they're friends. Hayato still thinks he should give her some space at school though, but to his surprise, Haruki asks him to come with her after class. Everyone in the class quickly assumes that she's into him, and the guys completely lose it over it. Haruki panics and immediately tries to save it, so Hayato plays along and says that she's talking about that request from the garden this morning. That manages to make everyone lower their guards, so Haruki escapes the class with Hayato and takes him to her secret base. She explains that this room is only used for storage, so nobody ever comes in. Hayato just tells her that it's still pretty empty for a base, so Haruki admits that she should bring some supplies, since it also could be a good shelter. He then asks her why she brought him here, but she hesitates at first, not knowing how to put it. Haruki asks him to promise not to laugh, and then confesses that she always dreamed about being able to eat lunch with friends. After all, if she eats lunch with someone, it'll definitely make someone else jealous, so she's been eating alone this whole time. Seeing how nervous she is about all of this, Hayato decides to reassure her and tells her that her dream is about to start coming true every day, because he'll be eating lunch with her. Haruki excitedly accepts and tells him that she'll owe him a favor for every 10 lunches, but he warns her that she'll just keep going into debt that way. Hayato suggests that they just say they'll meet here for lunch if nothing else is going on, and asks her if that sounds like a fair promise. Haruki is surprised by the offer for a moment, but she gladly accepts and tells him that it's a promise. That day, at the end of summer, Hayato's endless days of waiting finally ended, and they both realized that they had kept alive that small promise they'd made when they were kids. Things are a little different now though, so he notices the little things, like the fact that that he is a full head taller than her now, and that when they hold hands, hers feels really small. They still run at the same pace, but her steps are shorter than his. All these differences emerged during the time they were separated, but Hayato is confident that those differences won't matter in the end. The next day at school, Hayato notices that Haruki is struggling with conversation with the girls in their class. She just tells them that she doesn't watch a lot of TV shows, so she doesn't know what they're talking about. The girls insist and even try to show her some pictures of the actors, but they quickly change the topic and start talking about some rumors they heard from other classes. Hayato can see that Haruki feels out of place, so he decides to do something and tells her that someone was just calling for her from the hallway. He mentions that the girl pointed toward the storage space and ran off, and that she seemed to be in a hurry, so she should probably go see what's up. Haruki quickly plays along and acts like she just remembered she promised her to meet during lunch, so she says goodbye to the other girls and leaves the classroom. Hayato stays a little longer so that no one suspects a thing, but he later meets with Haruki at her secret base to have lunch together. She thanks him for saving her neck back there, and then wonders why girls are always babbling about who's got the hots for who and all that. Hayato tells her that it's probably just because they're girls, since even Himeko is hooked on shows like that too. Haruki confesses that she's more into talking about which character is best fit for which mecha, or like when that game producer started hiring new people, and the dev team got reassigned in a really suspicious way. Hayato doesn't see the problem with that either, because some kids here are interested in that sort of stuff. Haruki clarifies that they're pretty much all dudes, and she also confesses that she gave people the wrong idea about her in middle school. Hayato can't hold his laugh at that, so Haruki scolds him and tells him that she had to learn to be really careful about who she talked to after that. He quickly apologizes and admits that being popular isn't all fun and games, apparently. Haruki tells him that it's a pain, and with a resigned expression, she says that she really sucks at that girl talk stuff. Not knowing what to say to that, he simply decides to ruffle her hair, explaining that Himeko always lets him do that to get off the hook. Haruki complains as she tries to fix her hair, saying that it takes a lot of work to get it just right. She then hesitantly reminds him that she's not like Himeko, so she won't let him off the hook. The moment Hayato sees her like that, he gets a little flustered, and for the first time, he actually thinks Haruki is kind of cute. Not knowing how to react, he simply looks away and tries to act natural, saying that even if she hates girl talk, she can hide behind her camouflage and just do her normal prim and proper good student act. After hearing that, Haruki worriedly asks him what he thinks about her acting and fooling everyone like that. Fortunately, Hayato tells her that he doesn't think anything of it, except that that's just her. A little relieved, Haruki smiles and pulls out a calorie jelly drink, so he mentions that she's always drinking that stuff. She explains that it's an easy way to get some nutrition, and she also bought rice balls at the convenience store like every morning. Haruki then notices what he brought for lunch, and she's completely amazed by how it looks, so he proudly explains that they're rice croquettes. He offers to trade one for half her onigiri, and Haruki obviously accepts the offer. She's delighted by the flavor as soon as she takes the first bite, so she asks him who makes it, wanting to know if it's frozen. Much to her shock, Hayato informs her that he made it himself, and that makes her realize that 7 years is a very long time. Hayato notices her sad expression, but before he can say anything, they both panic when they see two students walking right by the storage room's window. They immediately hide and decide to spy on them, so they see the moment a girl from a lower grade asks her upperclassman to let her borrow the rest of his life. Before he can even give her an answer, the girl is all up over him, taking him by surprise, so she apologizes and explains that she just loves him. The two of them get a little affectionate at some point and then leave, so both Hayato and Haruki are a little flustered after witnessing such a thing. Haruki confirms that she really does suck at girl talk, but Hayato admits that he does too, so they simply laugh about it in the end. Later, they casually run into each other at the grocery store, and Haruki sees him looking at the candy toys. He quickly tries to run away, pretending that he isn't interested, but he stops as soon as Haruki reveals that she built a diorama with parts from the Showa Candy Store series. She proudly shows him a photo of it, and Hayato immediately recognizes it, saying that it's Auntie Murao's old shop. Haruki admits that it wasn't easy, because she kept getting the bench over and over, but that gave her a new respect for the laws of probability. Hayato nervously changes the subject and tells her that they should go buy the stuff they need for dinner, but Haruki stares at him blankly for a second, and then immediately tries to reach for the candy toys. He somehow manages to stop her, so they buy only what they need for dinner, even getting a few good sales. As they walk back home, Haruki admits that he's a really good house husband, and Hayato doesn't deny it. When he sees her carrying the shopping bags, he decides to carry them for her without a word, taking her by surprise. He only then notices how heavy they are, and realizes it's mostly frozen stuff, so he decides to hurry. Hayato asks her if she always buys this much at once, and she explains that she just likes to stock up when she can. The rest of the walk back home is a little quiet, and Haruki can't help but remember the promise they made, thinking that it's no problem as long as it's him. Once they get to her place, Hayato leaves her shopping bags at the entrance, but before he can leave, Haruki stops him. After hesitating a little, she nervously asks him for his number, saying that she just realized they haven't exchanged any contact information yet. To her surprise, Hayato apologizes and confesses that he doesn't even have a cell phone. In response to this, Haruki gets really mad and just yells at him, calling him an idiot. When he gets back home, Himeko complains about tomorrow's forecast, as they say it's going to rain, which means her hair will explode into frizz while the top gets all flat. Hayato admits that he kind of likes the rain though, because it means he doesn't have to worry about getting roped into watering things. Himeko reminds him that they aren't living in the fields anymore, so he admits that he forgot about that. She then mentions that it looks like it'll clear up after lunch, so maybe she'll be okay with a small umbrella. Hayato is surprised that she can know all of that thanks to her phone, and Himeko tells him that it's pretty handy, though she knows he's never interested in that kind of stuff. Hayato confesses that Haruki got mad at him for not having one, so Himeko explains that just as every household needs a fridge and every farm needs a tractor, every person needs a cell phone. It's an everyday essential after all, so it is very strange that he doesn't have one. Hayato had no idea it was that bad that he didn't have one, and Himeko tells him that she can even chat with Saki every single day. She mentions that she was pretty worried about him though, so she wants to know if he did something. Hayato clarifies that he didn't do anything, and that he doesn't think she likes him that much anyway. Himeko knows this because Saki always used to start acting weird when he was around, so she thinks maybe she found him physically repulsive. That comment takes him by surprise, so Hayato quickly asks her to stop, warning her that she might actually hurt his feelings. Putting that aside, Himeko tells him that she bets Haruki was just happy to see him again after so long. They're still good friends, which means they still have a lot to talk about, so she thinks he probably just wants to be able to talk to him more. Hayato realizes she's probably right, because there's a lot about Haruki that he doesn't understand yet, including the fact that she was actually a girl, or why she got so mad at him before for not having a cell phone. They might run into other misunderstandings and disagreements, so he thinks that maybe if he had a cell phone, they could start getting to know each other better. The next day at school, Hayato decides to see what Mitake is up to in the garden before class. She's checking the crops despite the rain, so he approaches her with an umbrella and mentions that they seem to be growing well. Mitake agrees, and tells him that the zucchini is growing nice and big, as well as the tomatoes and eggplants she pruned. Hayato asks her if he can borrow her pruning shears, since they might as well go ahead and pick these. After harvesting the crops, Mitake is happier than ever, so she offers him half of the harvest, explaining that she was only able to do this thanks to his help. Hayato thanks her and gladly accepts it, but that's when Mitake asks him for his email address. She explains that she doesn't have anyone else to ask for advice, and she still has a lot of questions, but asking him like this might make him uncomfortable, so it'd be easier if she had his email. Once again, Hayato has to apologize, but he quickly clarifies that it's not because he doesn't like her, and that it's simply because he doesn't have a cell phone. After all, he moved here from the country, where they could barely even get a signal. Fortunately, Mitake doesn't take it the wrong way and simply laughs, properly introducing herself and letting him know that he's from Class C. Hayato does the same, saying that he's from Class A, and tells her that he'll let her know when he finally gets a phone. After making that small promise with her, he finally goes to his classroom, still soaked from the rain. Haruki doesn't miss the opportunity and acts concerned, asking him if he's alright and if he forgot his umbrella today. Hayato is a little taken off guard by her act, but Haruki continues and offers him her handkerchief, saying that he's free to use it. He nervously declines and clarifies that he'll dry off in a minute, but she insists and decides to dry him off herself, saying that he might catch a cold. The whole class is shaken by this display, wondering what this means, and when Hayato sees Haruki's smile, he realizes she's doing this totally on purpose. He quickly tries to save it and simply takes the handkerchief, thanking her and saying that he'll wash it and get it back to her. Haruki then tells him that it would be much easier to return if he told her his cell phone number first. Hayato only then realizes that he fell right into her trap, and while all eyes are on him, he's forced to apologize, explaining that he doesn't have a cell phone. Haruki's expression instantly turns sad as she apologizes, saying that she shouldn't have been so insistent. The whole class takes this the wrong way and feels sorry for Haruki, thinking that Hayato simply doesn't want to give her his info. Hayato quickly tries to fix the situation, clarifying that he actually doesn't own a cell phone. Despite this, his classmates decide to have a word with him, and without letting him explain himself, they drag him out of the classroom. After school, Hayato goes to Haruki's place for another video game match, and she tells him that she was right when she said it was weird that he doesn't have a cell phone. Hayato clarifies that he gets it now, since he got in a lot of trouble for it, and now he knows just how popular she really is. After losing the video game, they just laugh and admit defeat, knowing that they were pushing it too hard. Haruki then asks him what's with the vegetables, and he tells her that he got them from Mitake in the gardening club as a thank you gift. He asks her if she wants some, but Haruki declines and says that she can't eat that much by herself. Putting that aside, she asks him why he doesn't have a cell phone, wanting to know if that's some kind of rule at his house. Hayato clarifies that Himeko has one and uses it all the time, so that's not the case at all. He mentions that Himeko really wants to see her, so she should come over sometime. Haruki is really excited by the idea, but she doesn't let him change the subject and asks him the same question again, wanting to know why he doesn't have a cell phone. Hayato just tells her that there's no special reason, but that answer surprises her even more since they're very handy, and she bets even people at Tsukino's use them too. He doesn't deny it, and even mentions that a lot of people used apps to help manage their fields or uploaded videos of themselves plowing and stuff. Having no way to avoid this conversation, Hayato asks her to promise not to laugh and confesses that he doesn't know which one to choose since there are so many types of cell phones. Haruki didn't actually promise anything, so she doesn't hesitate to laugh as soon as she hears that, now understanding understanding everything. Hayato gets embarrassed and tells her that she owes him 5 more for this, so she apologizes and says that they should go pick out a cell phone together this weekend. That night at home, Himeko suddenly tells Hayato that she wants to go buy ice cream. Even though they still have some left in the fridge, she clarifies with a serious expression that she actually wants to go to a convenience store at night. Hayato immediately understands her idea and decides to go with her, and when they get to the convenience store, they're surprised to see that it's actually open. As they stand outside, Haruki casually runs into them, but when she notices that Himeko doesn't recognize her, she decides to act like she's just a classmate and asks Hayato if the girl with him is his girlfriend. Hayato realizes that she got the wrong idea, but Himeko gets a little intimidated and quickly hides behind him, asking her if they know each other. Haruki affirms this and informs her that they sit next to each other in class, though she didn't think he could move so quickly since he's just transferred and he's already picked up such a cute girlfriend. Hayato stops her right there before things escalate, clearing the misunderstanding by saying their names. Neither of them can hide their surprise at the revelation, but Himeko's demeanor instantly changes, and she excitedly tells her that she's turned into a really beautiful girl, as she had no idea it was her. Haruki smiles proudly and tells her that her camouflage was pretty convincing in that case. Himeko admits that she fooled her completely, since she always thought she was a boy when they were kids, and Hayato said she hadn't changed at all, and that if anything, she'd only leveled up and turned from a monkey into a gorilla. Haruki gets a little grumpy by that comment, so she tells Hayato that he owes her one for that. Himeko laughs and admits that it's just like her brother said, since she hasn't changed at all. Without wasting any time, she asks her to exchange contact information, saying that she has her own cell phone, unlike her brother. Haruki instantly agrees and tells her that Hayato is really weird for not having one, though he's always been kind of old-fashioned in strange ways. The next day at school, Haruki looks like she didn't sleep all night, which worries some of her classmates. Hayato knows exactly what happened, and that she simply stayed up all night chatting on her phone. Haruki receives another text just then, and she can't help but smile, so the guys in the class immediately get the wrong idea. She didn't sleep at all last night, and now she's smiling like that, but they realize it's even stranger that she didn't have someone until now. Haruki panics when she notices all eyes on her, so Hayato has no choice but to help her. He raises his voice loud enough for everyone to hear, mentioning that she surely looks happy with her phone and asking her if she got a new friend or something. Haruki gets a little nervous at first, completely clueless, but when she realizes what he's trying to do, she plays along and shows him the photo she took with Himeko, saying that she met with a friend she hadn't seen since they were kids. She shows the photo to her classmates as well and explains that they got carried away talking about the past last night. During lunch, Haruki meets with Hayato at her secret base, as usual, and tells him that he really saved her. Hayato puts that aside and asks her what she has in her bag, so she explains that she found these small cushions at the 100 yen store, though they were actually 200 yen each. That confuses him a little, since he doesn't understand how something at a 100 yen store could cost 200 yen. Despite that, he tries to pay her for his, but she tells him that it's fine and that he can just owe her one. Haruki confesses that she does have one favor to ask and hesitantly tells him that she wants something from him. Hayato asks him what she wants, but the way she's looking at him puts him on the edge with anticipation. She nervously asks him if he'll really make her say it out loud, but the way her stomach growls speaks for her, and he only then understands that she's hungry. Unable to contain her embarrassment, Haruki panics and explains that she was super late this morning, so she didn't eat breakfast and didn't even get a chance to buy lunch. Hayato doesn't really mind sharing, so he offers her half of his lunch, saying that she owes him one. He mentions that he doesn't have extra chopsticks though, but Haruki tells him it's all good because she has a bunch of leftover ones from the convenience store in her bag. That fact worries him a little, and Hayato realizes that all she eats is frozen food and convenience store meals. Haruki enjoys the lunch he brought, saying that Hamburg steak is so good with all the vegetables. She asks him if he made this too, and Hayato explains that he made a bunch a while back and froze them, enough for Himeko's lunch too, since it's easier to cook hers at the same time. Haruki mentions that that's the kind of thing she misses out on as an only child and admits that Himeko is very lucky. Hayato clarifies that Himeko overslept this morning and barely made it to school and asks her what they were talking about so late anyway. Haruki tells him that they talked about all sorts of stuff because Himeko knows all about clothing brands and makeup and she doesn't know anything about that stuff. She asks him to come over to her place after school today since his sister is coming too. Hayato accepts, but he admits that's a surprise, especially since she's so good at maintaining her camouflage. Haruki laughs half-heartedly, but her gaze darkens a little as she reminds him that all that nice girl stuff is only an act. Just as she's about to say something more, Hayato stops her, genuinely concerned for her, so she simply smiles and quickly moves on, asking him to forget about it. As they eat, Hayato can't help but remember the way they used to share food when they were kids as well. His concern doesn't disappear, because he doesn't know what her situation is and doesn't think he can ask. Even so, he decides to be there for her anyway, and simply pats her head affectionately. The action takes her by surprise, but it actually makes her smile, and she also remembers their childhood. Haruki tells him that he sure has changed, because he never used to be so cocky. Hayato acts clueless and tells her that he doesn't know what she's talking about, but they both laugh about it in the end. After school, some students linger at the exit as they observe a girl from the middle school nearby waiting for someone outside. Hayato soon finds out it's actually Himeko, who immediately takes Haruki's hand and drags her away. Some students start murmuring things, saying that it's unusual for someone to be waiting for Haruki since she doesn't seem like the type to hang out with people. Hayato just lets them talk, realizing that it must be tough to be so popular. He later goes to Haruki's place, but to his surprise, she rushes out of her house, trying to escape Himeko. His sister asks him to stop her, so Hayato grabs Haruki and asks her what's going on, though she only calls him a traitor. He tries to make her calm down and quit struggling, not understanding a thing, while Himeko smiles mischievously and asks him to escort her back into the house. Once they're back inside, Himeko mercilessly scrutinizes Haruki's closet, saying that not only do her clothes complete the triad of dark, dull, and dorky, but most of them are all worn out. She even wonders if all these shirts are even the right size, and Hayato mentions that these aren't just grubby old clothes, since they also look exactly like the clothes she wore when they were kids. Himeko agrees and tells him that the outfit she was wearing at the store must have been a rare anomaly. She asks Haruki not to worry though, and tells her that even if she's still using the same disastrous wardrobe, and even if they can't bear to be seen with her in public, they know that's who she is, so they won't abandon her. Each one of her unfiltered comments hurt Haruki, but she doesn't argue and decides to listen to her. So Himeko asks Hayato if she can borrow her this Saturday. He doesn't have a problem with this, since they can check out cell phones on Sunday, so he simply agrees, and Himeko exclaims that they're going to go buy Haruki new clothes this weekend. Haruki gets a little intimidated by her determination, and Himeko clarifies that if they're going to do this, she must be prepared. That sounds more like a threat, but she simply smiles afterwards and says that she could use something to drink after all that talking. Haruki realizes that she hasn't offered them anything yet, so she decides to go prepare some black tea for them. As soon as she leaves the room, Himeko scolds Hayato and clarifies that she may be the same old Haruki, but despite her looks, she's still a girl, so he should go give her a hand. Hayato doesn't argue and decides to go look for Haruki in the kitchen, but as soon as he enters, he's shocked to see the state of her house. He notices the newspapers piled on the floor and the garbage bags stacked all over the kitchen. There are also untouched moving boxes gathering dust, and it's as if no one lived in that part of the house. Hayato stares at her, still stunned, so Haruki quickly laughs and tries to deflect his attention, fumbling over her words to find an excuse. Seeing how nervous and ashamed she is, Hayato decides not to pry and simply grabs her hand, saying that they're leaving now. He doesn't give her any explanation and tells Himeko that they're all going to the grocery store and then home. His sister doesn't question him and quickly gets her stuff to leave, while Haruki is still confused. Once they get everything they need at the grocery store, Hayato takes Haruki to his house and makes her help with dinner. He tells Himeko that he'll be chopping the vegetables so she can start grating the garlic and ginger. Himeko then asks Haruki to take out a bowl and grab the spices, though Haruki is surprised that even their guests have to help. Hayato clarifies that it's only because it's her, so she doesn't question it and decides to help them. As she sees Hayato cooking though, she notices that he seems really good at this. The three of them make gyozas for dinner, and they end up looking pretty good, so Himeko doesn't hesitate to start eating despite burning her tongue. Haruki also burns her tongue a bit, but she doesn't even care, because they taste really good, much better than the frozen food she usually eats. She also realizes that it's been forever since she sat at the dinner table with other people, and she can't help but tear up a little, because she didn't see how emotionally drained she's been recently. Hayato tells her that at dinner time, it's pretty much always just him and Himeko, so he was thinking she could have dinner here with them from now on. The offer takes Haruki by surprise, and when she asks him why, Hayato just tells her it's because it's her, and because they're friends after all. His words really manage to move her, but Haruki wipes her tears and smiles, saying that it sounds like she owes him another one. He assures her that she doesn't owe him for this, so Haruki tells him that it's a promise in that case. Himeko just smiles at the scene, thinking that they really are best friends. That weekend, they finally meet up to go shopping for new clothes, and Himeko is surprised to see so many buildings. Haruki mentions that if they hit all the shops along the main drag, then check the department store at the end and look around to the other side, they should be able to cover everything in one trip. As they walk, Himeko tells her that for all that hesitating a few days ago, she sure seems to be ready to go today. Haruki agrees and explains that when she decides to do something, she wants to do it right, and this way, they'll get to have fun surprising Hayato too. Himeko hesitantly agrees, though deep down, she thinks Haruki looks great in what she's wearing today. Half is stuff she lent her, but all of a sudden she's an actual girl, even though she once thought she was a boy, and back then, she was something different to her. Himeko stops herself before delving deeper into these thoughts, slapping her cheeks to snap out of it, though Haruki thinks she's just getting herself pumped up. The two of them don't waste any more time, so they decide to hit up all the shops. In the meantime, Hayato decides to visit his mother at the hospital, wanting to see how she's doing. She offers him some apple slices, though he thinks they're kind of a lot, so she tells him that if there's any left over, she'll give it to his father tonight. Hayato doesn't question it and eats some of them, and he then asks her if it looks like she'll be alright. His mother mentions that the surgery was successful, though her fingers do tingle a little, but she's going to be transferred to the rehabilitation ward pretty soon. Putting that aside, she asks him how Himeko's been, wanting to know if she's still crying. Hayato lets her know that she's doing well, and mentions that she's out with a friend today. After that brief visit, Hayato decides to head back, not wanting to stay too long despite his mother's insistence. As he walks through the hospital halls, he can't help but remember bitter memories of his sister crying while their mother mother was on the floor. Those sad thoughts are interrupted when he suddenly runs into Mitake, who's carrying some flowers in her hands. He mentions how pretty those flowers are, saying that they look lovely bundled together, and that vegetable flowers look so different outside of the garden. Mitake nervously explains that she was pruning, and that she wanted to make good use of the little fellows she chopped off. Hayato tells her that it's a great idea, but deep down, he can't help but think that she really is like his uncle Jen's sheep. Mitake gets so embarrassed that she tears up a little, and out of nowhere, an old man suddenly throws a bottle of water at Hayato, who quickly catches it in the air. The old man yells at him, asking him what he thinks he's doing with his granddaughter. Hayato is very confused by everything, but the old man doesn't give him any time to explain and immediately attacks him for upsetting his darling granddaughter and making her cry. Hayato is just surprised that they're related, since they're completely different, but he just blocks every attack as the old man tries to hit him with his cane. Mitake panics and tries to stop her grandfather, nervously explaining the situation. Once everything is cleared up, the old man apologizes to Hayato for the misunderstanding, realizing he's the transfer student that's been teaching Mitake about vegetables. With a terrifying expression, the old man asks him why he first approached her, wanting to know he was trying to hit on her. He threatens him with his cane one more time, pushing him to answer, so Hayato quickly explains that she reminded him of a kid he used to know in his old neighborhood, an 8-year-old girl. He doesn't mention it was a sheep though, and the old man doesn't question it, but Mitake gets embarrassed and asks her grandfather to quit acting so weird to Hayato. She then leaves the flowers on the table and grabs Hayato's hand, getting him out of there while her grandfather feels abandoned and betrayed. As they walk out of the hospital, Hayato reminds her that she's still holding his hand, so Mitake panics and quickly lets go, apologizing for that. He mentions that he can tell that her grandfather is really fond of her, but for some reason, Mitake's expression dims at his comment. As soon as he notices that shift, Hayato remembers the way his sister cried, and he realizes Mitake is kind of like her. He apologizes to her, but Mitake tells him that he has nothing to apologize for, unlike her grandfather. Hayato is still thinking about their interaction, because Mitake's expression reminded him of Himeko's when it happened. That's why, before leaving, he decides to ask her if he can visit the garden again. That takes her by surprise, but she gladly accepts, so he tells her that he'll see her soon. Later that day, Himeko finally gets home, completely exhausted, and mentions that Haruki said she's too tired to come today. Hayato is surprised to know that Haruki is able to get tired, so he asks his sister just what they were doing, but she tells him that they were just shopping. Himeko decides to rest for a bit, and even though she's tired, she thinks today was really fun. At some point, she told Haruki that it would be hilarious for her to put on something super girly just to see how much she can make Hayato squirm. Haruki seemed to like the idea, so Himeko knows that she's going all out just for Hayato. In a change of scene, we see Saki Murao, a girl from Tsukinos and friend of Himeko. While she runs some errands and delivers the neighborhood bulletin, an old man decides to give her some vegetables from his farm for her hard work. Saki thanks him and continues on her way until she receives a text from Himeko, who asks her how things are there. Saki answers right away, and Himeko tells her that she was hanging out with Haruki. She even sends her a photo, but the moment Saki sees how Haruki looks now, she immediately calls Himeko, saying that now she wonders who that girl is. Himeko doesn't understand her question, so she clarifies that it's Haruki, the one who used to hang out with Hayato all the time. Saki's expression turns slightly terrified despite her smile, but she nervously mentions that Haruki sure is a pretty girl. She asks her what she was saying about a gorilla though, wanting to know if she was lying to her about that. Himeko clarifies that she was indeed talking about Haruki, because inside, she's just like she used to be, even when she's with Hayato. That only causes Saki to freak out even more, but Himeko says goodbye and hangs up soon enough, leaving her completely terrified and confused, wondering what this even means. The next day, Hayato gets a little lost at the train station, but Haruki finds him first after a while and grabs his hand to run away, while some guys get disappointed to see she's actually meeting up with someone. They were clearly trying to make a move on her, but Hayato doesn't understand anything, and Haruki simply complains about him being late. He apologizes and explains that the station is just too big, so he kind of felt like he was in a maze. Haruki doesn't listen to him and notices the way he's looking away from her, so she gets a little cocky and asks him if she's making him nervous, since she's wearing a new outfit today. Hayato instantly denies it, of course, but when he looks back at her, he notices that she's also wearing makeup. Haruki proudly tells him that this is her first time, but she decided to give it a shot, so she wants to know what he thinks about her looks overall. She leans toward him with curiosity, and Hayato can't hide the fact that he's actually a little nervous, but he still admits that she looks very pretty like that. Surprisingly, that makes Haruki even more nervous than him, so she quickly tries to explain herself and make up an excuse. Hayato tries to reassure her and assumes she dressed up just to show him, and Haruki admits that he's not wrong, but she still doesn't like how that sounds at all. Unable to handle the embarrassment and nervousness, she simply grabs his hand again and drags him out of the station, saying that they have to hurry up and find him a cell phone. She does thank him for the compliment though, and after a while, they finally find a cell phone for him. Hayato thanks her for the help, since he couldn't have done it on his own, and he doesn't know anything about that. Haruki asks him if he's sure he wanted the same one as her, considering there were a ton of other options. To her surprise, Hayato simply tells her that it's easier if they go together, and even though she understands something entirely different, he quickly explains that if he can't figure out how to use it, he can just ask her. Haruki asks him why he didn't get the same one Himeko has in that case, and Hayato reminds her that Himeko is his sister, so it would be a little weird. Haruki can't say she knows what that feels like, so she doesn't question him about it and simply continues walking. After a while, Hayato slows down and apologizes, asking her if he's walking too fast for her, since he can tell she's not used to her new shoes yet. Haruki stops walking and hesitantly clarifies that it's not the shoes, but rather the skirt, which is sort of short. She explains that the fabric is thin and flimsy, so she can really feel the breeze against her thighs. If the wing blows the wrong way, it could flip upward, and if she's not careful when she bends over to pick something up, people might be able to see underneath. Hayato admits that it sounds awfully uncomfortable, but Haruki gets a little grumpy and tells him it's unfair to make her go through this alone, so he should wear a skirt too, and then he'll understand her struggle. He quickly tells her that he'd look terrible in one, so there's no way he'll wear a skirt. Haruki teases him a bit, reminding him that he's Himeko's brother, so he probably would look great in one. All of a sudden, she realizes something and admits that she's finally starting to understand how Himeko felt yesterday when she was buying clothes for her. Her expression terrifies Hayato a little, so he quickly asks her to stop understanding that, because she looks totally serious. Haruki finally backs off and simply snickers, clearly amused by his reaction. The two of them decide to take a walk through the city, and Hayato is surprised by how big it is, so she asks him if there's anywhere else he wants to go. He's not so sure how to answer that, because there are many shops to choose from, and he's honestly a little lost. Haruki tells him that it's the perfect time to put his new cell phone to use, so Hayato quickly pulls it out to do a search for the store and neighborhood. Thanks to this, they soon get to a giant 100 yen store, and even Haruki is surprised because she's never been there before either. Hayato is very excited about it because everything they sell is only 100 yen, and there are a lot of things. Without wasting any time, the two of them head into the store and check many different items, simply having fun and spending time together. After a while, they walk out of the store with nothing in their hands, and Hayato admits there was so much to choose from, he couldn't decide at all. Haruki tells him that he's always been indecisive, like when they went to Auntie Murao's candy store and he couldn't decide and didn't get anything. Hayato remembers those times as well, and the two of them repeat what they used to say back then, saying that when they aren't sure, they just have to go with ramen and ice cream. That was their usual thing, and Haruki admits those were really good times. Hayato gets a little worried when he notices her sad expression, but before he can ask anything, Haruki's growling stomach interrupts him, and they both realize she's hungry. Hayato mentions that it's already past 1, so he asks her if she wants to go eat somewhere. Haruki excitedly tells him that she knows exactly where to go, and without wasting any time, she takes him to a karaoke, where they get their own private room. This actually surprises Hayato a lot, because back in Sukinos, karaoke was for bus trips and big gatherings. Haruki throws herself onto the sofa without a second thought, so Hayato simply sighs and fixes her skirt to make sure it covers her. She apologizes for the distraction and explains that she's rebelling after being so careful earlier. Hayato just complains and tells her that she doesn't need to show him everything like that. Even so, Haruki teases him and asks him if that piqued his interest, but he clarifies that the only thing it did was make him realize he sees him the same way he sees Himeko. Despite this, Haruki decides to brag a little and informs him that she is pretty popular with the boys, so she wants to know what he thinks. Still teasing, she leans closer to him, actually making him nervous, but that's when a member of the staff suddenly walks in to bring the ripe banana maple syrup pudding honey toast that they ordered. Both Haruki and Hayato panic and quickly pull away, so the employee clears her throat before leaving, reminding them that this isn't that kind of establishment, and asking them to please tone it down. As soon as she leaves, Haruki continues panicking, realizing that she must have looked really trashy. Hayato asks her to calm down, though he admits that it did look pretty trashy. Haruki feels even more embarrassed after hearing that comment, so she focuses all her attention on the food and starts eating non-stop until there's nothing on the plate. Hayato eats all he can as well, and the two of them actually manage to calm down after this, so they just laugh about it and wonder what they're doing. They walk out of the establishment after that silly situation, and Hayato mentions that it's his first trip to a karaoke box, but he didn't sing at all. He's sure they'll get another chance though, and Haruki happily agrees, but out of nowhere, she mentions the fact that he's a boy. Hayato doesn't understand what that has to do with anything, so she explains that she was just wondering what that makes them, with him the way he is, and with her the way she is. Hayato admits he doesn't know either, but he still thinks that together, they're still them, either way. That's a very simple way to put it, but Haruki seems to understand it, and she's satisfied with the answer. She then notices a crowd and decides to see what's going on over there, so Hayato follows her and realizes they're filming something. Someone from the crowd explains that they're shooting that show called 10 Years of Solitude, so they're all gathered to see the star actress, Takura Mao. Some people in the crowd mention that she looks really young, but that they also heard her private life is a mess, and people let her get away with it because she's mesmerizing. Hayato is a bit surprised to see the person from the ad he saw at the station earlier, but he focuses his attention on Haruki when he notices how quiet she is. Without a word, Haruki backs away and simply runs in the opposite direction as fast as she can, until she suddenly trips and falls. Hayato fortunately catches her before she hits the ground, so she finally stops trying to escape. She still doesn't say a word, but he doesn't pry and simply asks her if she wants to find out if walking along the train tracks will take them back home. Before she can give him an answer, he simply takes her hand and starts walking, so Haruki tells him that he's always so pushy. She starts noticing the little things as well, like the way his hand is big and strong now, and the fact that she used to be taller than him. Hayato tells her that he doesn't remember that, but Haruki assures him that she does remember, and right now, this is like the first time they met. After a while walking, Haruki decides to get something off her chest, and confesses that she lives in that house all alone. Right after that confession, they see a couple happily taking a walk with their daughter, and the sight makes Haruki tear up. She forces a smile onto her face, and admits that she's trying her best to be patient either way. Haruki then simply discards what she just said and moves on, so Hayato doesn't say a word, knowing that all she needed was someone to listen to her. They finally make it to the station after a while, and Haruki is reluctant to go to his house, since it's a little early for dinner, and she doesn't want to intrude if Himeko is studying. Hayato reassures her and says that he'd love it if she could help Himeko with her homework until dinner, so Haruki gladly accepts. When they get home, she tries her best to beat a sports video game that serves as exercise as well. Hayato focuses on making dinner, while Himeko observes Haruki and admits she looks too good with the way she flashes those gams. He quickly scolds her and clarifies that she sounds like an old perv, so Himeko stops staring and simply asks him what he thinks of Haruki's outfit today. Hayato tells her that he thinks it looks pretty cute on her, considering that it's Haruki. After a while, Haruki cheers and lets them know that she got the top score, so Himeko decides to try to take the top score back the next round, unable to accept it. After dinner, Haruki actually helps her with her homework, but she soon notices that it's getting late and that she should head back home. Himeko asks her brother to see her off, and Hayato doesn't have a problem with this, but as soon as they walk out of the house, they realize it's pouring rain. Haruki decides to borrow an umbrella, but given how intense the rain is, she admits that she'd feel dumb using it. That's why she just gives it back and decides to run under the rain instead, but Hayato quickly chases after her to stop her, asking her to stay the night. This clearly takes her by surprise, and Haruki totally takes it the wrong way, saying that he's really bold, and assuming that this means he's going to try something dirty. Hayato immediately clarifies that he just doesn't want her to catch a cold, but she still teases him and says that he probably just wants to spend more time with her. He actually doesn't deny it and simply grabs her hand to take her back home, saying that she'll stay overnight. Haruki can't hide her nervousness anymore, so she confesses that she's not emotionally prepared yet and Himeko is going to be there. Hayato assures her Himeko will be thrilled to have her, so she doesn't have to worry about that. He then confesses that, after what he saw today, he simply doesn't want to send her home. Haruki finally understands what he means, so she decides to stay, and Himeko is excited to know they'll have a sleepover. After taking a bath, Hayato notices that she's wearing his clothes, so he asks her why she didn't borrow Himeko's shirts. Haruki hesitantly tells him that she actually did try to borrow one of hers, but when she said the chest was too tight, she threw one of his shirts at her. Hayato can't hold his laugh after hearing that, and he tells her that she had to realize Himeko would be self-conscious about that. Haruki admits that Himeko looked super pissed about it, so she doesn't know if she should say something. Despite how worried she is, Hayato simply continues laughing, so Haruki hits him on the back and asks him to give her some helpful advice already. He quickly tells her to just give her some sweets, assuring her that'll cheer her up. Haruki finally calms down and says that Himeko has really turned into a girl too, apparently. She notices how broad his back is and tells him that the differences are really striking now. After all, Himeko is already outgrowing her, and he's such a great cook now, so they aren't the way they used to be anymore. Hayato remembers the way she used to be, but he just tells her that he had a lot of fun today. He knows they've both been through a lot, but he's glad he got to spend the day with her, and he really had fun. Hayato confesses that he was lonely ever since she left, because he had no other friends his age. He clarifies that it isn't just today, but ever since he moved here, every day has been fun like the old days, so he's glad he found her again. He then tells her that he doesn't know what happened with her, and he thinks there's a limit to what he could do anyway, but at least he can be here standing by her side, and now that he's got a phone, if anything happens, he'll come running to her without a doubt. Hayato stops talking the moment he realizes she's crying, but not even Haruki understands what's wrong with her, because this isn't like her. Without another word, Hayato simply turns around and lets her lean on him, because that's the only thing he can do for her now. Haruki cries non-stop until she falls asleep from exhaustion, while Hayato feels a little helpless, because he doesn't know what happened over the last 7 years, and he's sorry he can't do much for her. Even in her sleep, Haruki calls for her mother, but Hayato just wipes her tears, knowing that someday, once they make up for those 7 last years, he's sure she'll tell him everything. There's no need to rush, because they're both keeping alive that small promise they made so long ago, after all. The next morning, Haruki wakes up first and finds him sleeping on the couch, though she feels a little embarrassed when she remembers what happened, and all the times he's treated her like a little kid. That's why she decides to think of a way to get him back now that he's asleep and can't do anything about it. Without thinking, she leans closer to him, almost crossing the line, but she quickly pulls away and asks herself what she's doing. Still, she knows she has to do something at least, because he's messing with her all the time. After thinking about it for a while, she finally comes up with something, so she warns him in a whisper that if he doesn't wake up now, he's going to be sorry, though he can consider this payback. Hayato unfortunately doesn't wake up after this warning, so he later goes to school, completely clueless. One of his classmates notices a red spot spot on his neck, but he simply dismisses it and says it must be a bug bite. When he gets to the classroom, he sees a bunch of girls surrounding Haruki with excitement for some reason, so he asks what's going on over there. Mori tells him that she's got pictures with that childhood friend of hers, and she said they went shopping for clothes over the weekend, though he admits he's never seen this side of her before. Hayato doesn't say much about this, so Mori complains and tells him he could care for once because her friend's supposed to be a cutie too, and he could see what she wears outside of school. After so much insistence, Hayato decides to greet Haruki and mentions that she sure is getting a lot of attention today. Haruki greets him the same way and asks him if he wants to take a look, since it's a photo she took with an old childhood friend. Hayato tries to decline the offer at first, but when he sees a glimpse of the photo, he immediately snatches the phone from her hand, realizing it's a photo of them she took while he was asleep this morning. Haruki smiles smugly and explains this is a very dear childhood friend of hers, but Hayato gets flustered when he realizes the red mark on his neck is actually Hiki she gave him. When they get back home though, both Haruki and Himiko are a little terrified to see how angry he is. He just continues chopping vegetables with a dark aura around him, so Himiko nervously asks her what she did to bring him to that state. Hayato turns around to glare at her, so Haruki admits that she went too far and apologizes. That easily fixes things, so Hayato smiles at her and welcomes her home, making her genuinely happy. On another day, we go back to the past, when Hayato and Haruki are still kids, and they're chasing after Uncle Jen's sheep. At some point, they manage to corner it, but the sheep suddenly veers off and runs towards Himeko instead. Unable to dodge the sheep, Himeko only screams and braces herself, but when she opens her eyes again, she notices that Haruki has caught the sheep in time. Without wasting any time, Himeko leaves to tell old Jen, and Hayato says that he's glad nothing happened to his sister. After all, his mother would have been mad if he let a little girl get hurt. Hearing this makes Haruki kind of grumpy, so she asks him if he doesn't care if she gets hurt. Since Hayato still doesn't know that she's a girl, he easily dismisses it and says that he's not worried about her, but he offers her his hand and clarifies he knew she'd be fine because she's his partner. With this, Haruki feels better and simply decides to accept it, not questioning what he thinks about her. Back to the present time, Hayato wakes up after dreaming up such old memories, and even though it wasn't anything bad, his expression turns sad for some reason. Once at school, he decides to help Mitake with the garden, and she mentions that when vegetables flower or bear fruits, they start to run out of nutrients. Hayato tells her that's why they have to keep fertilizing them, because vegetables are just like people. When they exert too much energy, they get worn out. Mitake makes sure to remember that, and in no time, they finish fertilizing the crops. She thanks him for his help, but Hayato momentarily gets distracted when he notices he can see through her shirt due to how sweaty she is. He tries his best to keep his eyes on her face, but he really can't help himself from looking down, so he decides to look away completely, clearly flustered. His face is getting more and more red by the second, and Mitake doesn't understand what's going on, so Haruki shows up just in time to offer her a towel. She then explains that if she's going to do club activities out in this heat, she might want to do something about her clothes. After all, at the moment, she's just a little too distracting for the boys to handle. When Mitake looks down and finally realizes what she means, she immediately screams and runs away in panic and embarrassment, not even saying a word. Haruki then glares at Hayato and calls him a pervert, not giving him the chance to explain himself after what she saw. He soon understands that she won't accept any excuse, so he just gives up and apologizes. Despite this, even during class, Haruki still looks grumpy and refuses to look at him. Once the class ends, the teacher informs them that when they review today's key points, they must compare them to the printout from earlier. Hayato doesn't know what printout he's talking about, so he assumes it's from before he transferred. Knowing that he needs help, Haruki offers him a copy of her own printout and tells him that he can use it, as long as he doesn't start lecherously ogling it like he did that girl earlier. Hayato is shocked that she exposed him like that in front of the class, and soon, the guys approach him to question him about it, wanting to know what she caught him doing. Feeling cornered, Hayato nervously tries to explain himself, but even Mori questions him and tries to tease him, asking him if he let slip that he got a weird fixation or something. As soon as the other guys hear this, they start shamelessly confessing what they're into, even though Hayato tries to clarify it was nothing like that. However, Haruki exposes him without a second thought, revealing that Hayato is apparently really into breasts. Hayato instantly panics, and the whole class goes wild, guys reacting with excitement and girls with disgust towards them and Hayato. Meanwhile, Haruki simply grins with amusement and satisfaction, which infuriates him a little. Later at home, she tells everything to Himeko, who also finds the situation really amusing. Haruki tells her that she should have seen the sleazy look on his face, since the girl's assets were definitely bigger than hers, maybe even 3 ranks above. She confesses that even she couldn't help but stare either, and Himeko understands that something like that must have been impossible to resist, so she forgives her brother for it. Hayato simply thanks her and asks them to stop talking and finish eating their dinner already, since it's getting cold. The girls don't say another word about it, but after dinner, Himeko still wonders what's wrong with Hayato, considering he's got 2 cuties right here in front of him, and he's still gawking at other girls. Haruki agrees without thinking, saying that he should just settle for her. As soon as those words leave her mouth, she suddenly stops everything she's doing, and Himeko even beats her in the video game they're playing. Despite this, Haruki is still frozen in place, completely spaced out with a confused expression. When she finally snaps out of it, she decides to go back home immediately, not even giving her time to react. Himeko doesn't understand her reaction at all, and even Hayato is surprised that she just took off like that, so she teases him and says that Haruki probably thought he'd be staring at her chest if he went with her. Hayato obviously denies it and simply asks her to stop talking nonsense and go take a bath. Himeko decides to do just that, but she continues complaining in the bathroom, thinking that Haruki is very stubborn too, and she doesn't understand why she can't ever fix things up with her brother without her help. Himeko is also confused by Haruki's behavior today, and it makes her wonder if she could actually be getting interested in Hayato or something. She easily discards the idea and decides to weigh herself as usual, but the number she sees on the scale terrifies her. On the other hand, Haruki gets home with her heart racing and immediately gets in the shower to cool off and clear her thoughts. When she thinks about Hayato and the words that came out of her mouth earlier, she wonders if she's really worried that another girl might get to Hayato first. She can't get to a clear answer, so, unable to sort out her own feelings, she simply tells herself that it's Hayato's fault either way. After her shower, she receives a call from Himeko, who straight up panics and exclaims that she gained a whole 4 kilos. This information even causes Haruki to drop her ice cream, and Himeko mentions that she had seconds today as well, so she wants to know how she's doing. Haruki nervously tells her that she should be fine for sure, but Himeko asks her to go weigh herself now and face reality. Still having some hope, Haruki decides to step on the scale, but the number she sees there makes her scream and drop her phone. Knowing exactly how she must feel, Himeko tells her that they're forming a diet alliance, and Haruki has no choice but to accept. The next day, Hayato asks Mitake if she's ever gone on a diet before, but this only makes her assume that he's saying she's overweight, which makes her feel very embarrassed. Hayato quickly clarifies that he doesn't think she needs to go on a diet at all, and explains that his sister asked for his help with one. Mitake apologizes for jumping to conclusions again, and Hayato tells her that he always cooks for his sister, so he was wondering if she knew any good recipes for diets. Mitake is surprised that he cooks as well, so he explains that he started out of necessity since his mother can't now. Now Mitake understands why he was at the hospital the other day, and she decides to tell him that he's a very good brother. Hayato doesn't think so, but she tells him that she thinks it's really wonderful that he would be willing to learn a new skill to help someone out. Her expression turns sad when she thinks about her grandfather, so Hayato tries to distract her and asks if she cooks too. When she confirms it, he tells her that she can share her favorite recipes if she has some. Mitake doesn't mind doing this, but she clarifies that they're mostly the kinds of things her grandfather likes. Hayato thinks that's good either way, because it means they're probably good for diets too. As they speak, they suddenly hear the voices of 2 students, so they immediately hide to see who's there. Mitake recognizes the guy and informs Hayato that he's Kazuki Kaido, a member of the soccer club who's known for being popular with the girls. They're witnessing a love confession right now, but this has happened before, so she knows that he's going to reject the girl any second now, and she's going to run off. Just like Mitake said, the girl runs off after Kazuki rejects her, so Hayato asks her how she knew that would happen. Mitake explains it's because of what all the girls have been saying about him that Kazuki thinks Haruki is the one. This information clearly surprises Hayato, and for some reason, he can't stop thinking about it. When he gets to the classroom, he notices several girls surrounding Haruki, and they're all talking about how to lose weight. Basically, they tell Haruki that getting moderate exercise and watching what she eats are the most important things. Mori mentions that all they're talking about is dieting, and Hayato admits that his sister was rambling on about diets the other day too, which makes him wonder if it's some kind of fad. Mori tells him that it's about time to switch to summer clothes, so he assumes they're worried about that. He decides to give him one piece of advice and warns him that girls on diets are emotionally unstable, so he should think of them as a wounded, starving beast or something. Hayato mentions that it sounds like he's speaking from experience, so Mori painfully admits it's because that's how his girlfriend is. Another piece of advice he gives him is that when a girl's stomach is empty, he must fill her bosom instead, so he should compliment her hard work, pamper her, and give her lots of physical affection. Hayato just tells him that he really can't expect him to do that with his little sister, but then he thinks about Haruki too. At lunch, Haruki is clearly unhappy because she only has a plain chicken bar with no sugar and vegetable juice, while Hayato has a full lunchbox in front of her. When he asks her if she wants a bite from his food, she quickly looks away and clarifies that she can't eat that because she already gained 4 kilos. Hayato tells her that it doesn't look like she's gained that much, but Haruki snaps at him and exclaims that he has no clue how big of a deal 4 kilos is. He doesn't understand what her problem is, so she explains that it's the equivalent to having about 4 cartons of milk, around 7 weekly manga magazines, or a medium-sized watermelon worth of flesh attached to her body. Hayato is still a little confused, but he's kind of scared to question her any further, so he doesn't say anything else. After finishing her meal, Haruki hesitantly asks him if he's mad at her, because he's had this really serious look on his face all day. She confesses that maybe she went a little overboard yesterday, and apologizes for that. Hayato doesn't know what she means, but he remembers Mori's advice, and understands she's probably emotionally unstable. For some reason, he also remembers what Mitake said about Kazuki, and decides to follow Mori's advice to pamper her. He pats her head and mentions that they say that if she diets too much and doesn't get enough nutrition, it will damage her hair, and he wouldn't like that to happen. Haruki is a little surprised by this, but she agrees and tells him that she'll be careful. Hayato asks her not to overdo it, and reminds her that he's here to help help, so she can take her time and try not to rush things. Haruki seems to feel better now, but he decides to keep going and tells her that her hair is so soft he could get addicted to patting her head. This makes her even happier, so she smiles and says that she'll keep taking good care of it in that case. Hayato then pulls his hand away and admits that if he does that too much, he'll mess her hair up, so he will stop it here. The moment he pulls away, Haruki realizes what just happened, so she immediately panics and throws a pillow at him, asking him when he learned to do that and how many other girls have fallen for his dirty tricks. Hayato is terrified by her reaction, so he tries to explain that there is no trick to fall for and there was almost nobody in Tsukino's his own age anyway. Other than Himeko, it was basically just sheep and cats, so Haruki freaks out and assumes that he did that to his sister. She's clearly jumping to conclusions at this point, so Hayato simply asks her not to be gross and to calm down. When she finally does, she grumpily explains that she's not used to being complimented and pampered and stuff, and nobody's ever rustled her hair like that before. Hayato admits that's a surprise, considering she's really popular, and he thought she'd be used to guys confessing that they like her and stuff. Haruki denies it and clarifies that nobody's ever told her that before, because she's always put up a front to keep them away. She explains that when celebrities start going out with someone and it interferes with their work, it can actually become a huge problem for them. That's why she, or rather the good girl Haruki, can't go out with anyone. Hayato listens to her without saying much, and he thinks he understands what she's trying to say, but he knows there is something else behind it, and those 7 lost years are in the way, hiding it from him. Haruki doesn't add anything else and simply says that she should stick to the diet for health's sake, at least. Hayato continues thinking about this all day, wondering what recipes are good for a diet. He doesn't have many female friends to ask, so he decides to ask Himeko if she could give him Saki's contact info. Himeko easily assumes the worst and tells him that he can't make a move on his sister's friends since it's really sketchy. Hayato quickly clarifies that's not what he's asking and explains that he just has some questions for her. Himeko still hesitates because Saki wasn't exactly a big fan of his in the first place. Despite this, she tells him that she'll give Saki his address, but it's up to her if she wants to message him or not. Sometime later, Saki receives a text from Himeko with Hayato's contact info, saying that she's free to ignore it. This makes Saki instantly panic, but she adds the contact with trembling hands and decides to text him right away, asking him if she can help him with something. Hayato is surprised that she sent him a response already, so after greeting her, he goes straight to the point and explains that Himeko said she wanted to go on a diet, so he wanted to know if she knows any recipes that might be good. As soon as he sends that text, he immediately gets a response, which surprises him even more. However, the way Saki speaks to him in her texts seems a little cold to him, which makes him think she truly doesn't like him. Saki just tells him that she's never been on a diet before, so she can't really say, but he could try searching for diet, meals, and recommendations. Hayato thanks her and tells her that he'll get in touch again if something comes up. The response he gets from her is even shorter than the other ones, which further confirms to him that she doesn't like him. Saki, on the other hand, nervously wonders if she was too curt and convinces herself that she can't waste such a good chance to talk to him. Determined to keep the conversation going somehow, she starts thinking about anything else they could talk about and finally comes up with something. A while later, Hayato wakes up on the couch, realizing he fell asleep, and he's surprised to see so many texts from Saki with links to different kinds of recipes. To his surprise, she also sent him a picture of herself in her outfit for this year's festival, asking him what he thinks about it. Hayato is clearly confused at first, but he knows that Himeko would probably ask to see when she starts working on her own outfit, so he assumes that's why she sent it. Convinced about this, he thanks her and says that Himeko will be excited to see this because she always wears such great costumes every year, and he thinks this one is really cute. Even though he can't see it, Saki can't contain her emotion after reading his text, but her response is as short as the last one either way. Hayato sees her text before class, and Mori catches a glimpse of Saki's picture on his phone, so he assumes he's got a thing for festivals and shrine girls. Hayato tries to explain himself, but Mori doesn't listen, as usual, and admits that shrine girls are definitely one perk of festivals, for sure, but another one is seeing girls in yukata. Soon, all the guys from the class gather around him to talk about it, saying that they look really good even though they aren't showing much skin. Haruki arrives just then and asks them if guys actually like girls in yukata that much, and they all unanimously confirm it. Now that they're talking about it, they start asking Haruki if she'd show them what she looks like in one. Haruki apologizes repeatedly as they invite her to come to the festival with them, not knowing how else to react. Mori simply laughs at the scene and mentions that Haruki has really changed since she looks more approachable now and a lot more easygoing than she used to be. That makes him think that the rumor the girls have been spreading must be true, that she has a boyfriend now. Hayato is clearly surprised to hear this, but that's when Kazuki Kaido suddenly enters the classroom, asking if Haruki is available. Haruki goes with Kazuki to help him with some club activities, but Hayato quickly recognizes him, and when he remembers what Mitaki told him about him, he decides to step right in and goes with them. This takes them by surprise, so Hayato explains that they're going somewhere to take care of club stuff, and he's been thinking of joining one too, so he thought this is a good time. Haruki easily agrees, as well as Kazuki, who says that he doesn't mind, though he mentions that it is an odd timing to join a club. Hayato informs him that he is a transfer student, so Kazuki easily understands and asks him what club he's looking to join, saying that they'd love to have him join theirs. Ignoring his invitation, Hayato clarifies that he wants to join the garden gardening club, which takes him by surprise. Knowing that Kazuki is in the soccer club, he asks him what's so fun about soccer anyway, still pretty defensive. Kazuki explains that he likes the power of a single goal, the freedom of movement, and then of course the feeling of camaraderie with his teammates. Hayato then informs him that it is the same thing with gardening and farming, where you water and prune every morning, fertilize, weed, and take care of bugs. It takes a lot of time, and it's hard labor, but the vegetables always reward you for the care you give them, and they all have different personalities. Hayato explains that there is nothing like the feeling when one of them produces odd-shaped fruit, and he then shows them a photo of two oddly shaped eggplants, saying that nothing is more fun than playing in the dirt. Both Haruki and Kazuki stay silent at first, but in no time, Haruki can't hold her laugh anymore, and she admits that it sounds like he really loves gardening, but it is really nice that he has something he's so passionate about. Without thinking, she starts slapping his back as she usually does, so Hayato asks her to quit that. The moment Haruki realizes what she's doing, she quickly composes herself and says that they should continue on. Once she walks into the student council office, the two of them wait for her outside, and Kazuki admits that he didn't expect to see that side of Haruki, but he guesses that what they just saw was her true self. Hayato plays dumb and doesn't say anything, but he internally wonders what Haruki is doing, since he thought she was trying to keep up her act. Putting that aside, Kazuki properly introduces himself and holds out his hand, asking him for his name. Still a little confused, Hayato introduces himself and hesitantly shakes his hand. When he returns to the classroom, the guys from his class are really satisfied with what he did, and they praise him for blocking the cool guy from devouring their class beauty. In no time, Kazuki returns to their classroom, but this time, searching for Hayato and asking him if he has any other pictures like the last one he showed him. This takes Hayato by surprise, but he tells him that he's sure he's got something, so Kazuki asks him to show him. Mori decides to expose Hayato just then and says that he also got pictures of shrine girls. Hayato complains about him mentioning that, though he admits that he does have such pictures, and Kazuki tells him that shrine girls are cute. Haruki pouts while they talk about that, but she then remembers that she has to go and decides to take a walk outside. She soon finds Mitake working in the school garden, so she decides to stop by to greet her. Mitake thinks it's Hayato at first, but seeing Haruki instead takes her by surprise, so she quickly asks her if she can help her with anything. Haruki hesitantly explains that she was just wondering what she was up to, so Mitake tells her that she's currently pruning and weeding. There is a brief silence after that, and Haruki doesn't know what else to say, but she notices just then just how cute Mitake is, realizing how different they are. For a moment, Haruki wonders if Mitake is the reason Hayato wants to join the gardening club, and the thought soon fills her with dread. She quickly forces herself to snap out of it, looking really frustrated, which kind of concerns Mitake. Haruki then apologizes and explains that she went full caveman for a second, though Mitake doesn't understand what she means by that, and asks her if something has been bothering her. Haruki hesitantly admits that something's been on her mind, so Mitake suddenly tells her that she should play in the dirt. Without hesitation, she hands her a straw hat and tells her that playing in the dirt is very nice, and that she'll find it very relaxing for sure. Haruki wasn't expecting something like that, but Mitake insists and tells her that they can trim off rogue branches here and there to snip those flowers right off. After so much insistence, Haruki ends up accepting, and she actually has fun while doing it. While they work in the garden, she mentions that she still thinks it's mysterious how a flower can turn into a vegetable, and Mitake agrees, saying that it is a truly marvelous thing. Mitake is just glad to see that she finally showed her a smile, and she then confesses that she endured a fairly shocking experience a little while ago. It was hard and difficult, and she cried a lot, but she still had an appetite, which she thought was kind of strange. She heard that vegetables are only getting started when they bloom, since that's where the fruits grow from, so she started doing this out of curiosity. Mitake explains that when you actually try to grow them, it takes a lot more work than you expect, but it is also that much more fun. She kind of forgets what she was trying to say, and simply tells Haruki that finding this hobby helped her through a very tough time. Haruki easily understands that, so she smiles again and tells her that she'll come visit again sometime, which makes Mitake really happy. In a change of scene, we see how Himeko is doing at middle school, and she complains about her lunch for today because Hayato added many tomatoes, which she hates. She bets this is her brother's way of getting back at her, and explains that when he made her dinner the other night, she complained and said it looked dreadful. The classmate who sits next to her takes a look at her lunch and asks her if her brother actually made that for her, since she finds it kind of incredible. Himeko downplays it and says that the stuff he cooks is all like party snacks and appetizers, and he's also rough when he wakes her up in the morning, and he cleans her room without asking first. Even though she's only complaining, her classmate thinks that's even more amazing, since he doesn't just cook and make her lunches, but he also cleans her room and takes care of her. Soon enough, two other classmates approach Himeko to ask her to tell them more about her brother. They clearly think very highly of him, so Himeko tries to clarify that he's not really that great since he's only a year older, but acts really arrogant. Despite this, her classmates insist and ask her not to let that stop her, saying that she should bring him to hang out sometime because they could go to karaoke or something. Himeko doesn't like that idea that much, but she gets excited as soon as she hears about karaoke, so her friends invite her to go after school today, which makes her really happy. Later after school, Himeko enjoys going to karaoke with her friends, and on her way back home, she admits that they all had great voices, so maybe she should come with Hayato and Haruki to practice before the next time. Just then, she suddenly runs into Haruki, who's hanging out with some of her classmates after school. Her classmates quickly recognize Himeko as Haruki's childhood friend, so they soon fill her with questions, wanting to know more about her. Himeko doesn't know how to react, so Haruki steps in and tells her that they've made her all nervous, so that's enough questions for today. She explains that Himeko just moved here, and she's still getting used to things, so they shouldn't give her such a hard time. The girls easily understand this and apologize to her, but Himeko reassures them and says that they just surprised her a little. Haruki praises her for handling that well, but Himeko asks her to cut it off and reminds her that she's not some little kid. She then gets a text from Hayato and mentions that her brother needs her to pick up some milk, yogurt, soy sauce, and some other things. Himeko complains since it sounds like a lot, but Haruki tells her that she'll go with her and carry half. Haruki's classmates say goodbye to them, but even after they leave, they're still surprised to have seen that side of her. They also mention the fact that Himeko said she has a brother and that Haruki knows them well enough to just drop by their house. They assume that's why Haruki has been softening up, and the idea gets them really excited. After buying the things Hayato asked for, Haruki and Himeko walk back home, and Himeko asks her if that's how she always acts at school, wanting to know if she hangs out with those girls before. Haruki clarifies that she just happened to run into them, and asks her if she thinks she seemed weird. Himeko tells her that she just seemed kind of mysterious, and that's actually the way she was acting at first at the convenience store too. Haruki admits that's pretty much how she acts when she's in public, so Himeko assumes that the regular Haruki is sort of like their secret. She then admits that she's glad it was her back there instead of Hayato, because at times like that, he is totally unreliable, and she even remembers Haruki used to watch out for her in the old days instead. Just when Haruki is about to say something, they see a rather big dog running down the street after escaping from its owner. Without thinking, Haruki jumps at the dog and catches it, but the dog easily brings her down, so Himeko panics and calls Hayato to ask him what she should do. She nervously explains that a big dog jumped on Haruki and knocked her over, though Hayato doesn't understand a thing at first. A few minutes later, Haruki is sitting on a bench with her ankle bandaged, while Himeko scolds her for being so reckless, and tells her that her face could have gotten hurt instead of her leg. Haruki apologizes for the trouble, but Mitake clarifies that she was simply trying to protect her, since the dog was running directly towards her. Himeko still thinks she deserves it, and explains that if she doesn't let Haruki have it sometimes, she'll never listen. She then asks Mitake if she's okay, and talks to her like she's a little girl, thinking that she was running errands for her mom or something. Mitake explains that this dog's name is Rento, and he is her neighbor's dog, so she thinks he just got excited to see her. Himeko then asks her if she's met Haruki before, so Haruki decides to clarify things and informs her that Mitake is in the same grade as her. That information makes Himeko freeze in place, so Haruki teases her and asks if she actually thought Mitake was younger than her. Himeko asks her to shut up and quickly apologizes to Mitake, who simply laughs and tells Haruki that she really acts differently outside of school. Haruki laughs nervously when she realizes she caught her, and she asks her if she seems weird now. Mitake quickly denies it and tells her that she in fact seems much more approachable this way. Himeko easily understands that Mitake is a friend of Haruki from school, though Mitake gets a little nervous and clarifies that she can't exactly say they're friends. Haruki gives it some thought and then tells her that they sure are friends, school friends and gardening buddies too. Mitake nervously thanks her for saying that and easily agrees before leaving with the dog, saying that she has to go already. Soon enough, Hayato arrives and scolds Haruki, but he doesn't waste any time and asks her to climb on his back, offering to take her home. Haruki thinks that a piggyback ride would be somewhat embarrassing at her age, but Hayato reminds her that she can't go walking around on that leg. Himeko just then remembers that Haruki actually did lean on her brother a lot in the past, so maybe she was wrong about what she said earlier. As they walk back home, Hayato mentions that Haruki sure is a lot heavier now than when they were kids. He's obviously just teasing her, but Haruki complains and tells him that he shouldn't say something like that to a young lady on a diet. Himeko agrees and tells him that he's really inconsiderate, but the three of them laugh about it in the end. The next day, Haruki decides to see how the school garden is doing, and she notices that the tomato stems are getting bumpy all over, so she asks Mitake if these are okay. Mitake explains that those are called aerial roots, and just then, Hayato arrives to see what they're up to. Haruki tells him that she's picking vegetables and helping with garden work, and Mitake then asks him if he thinks the tomatoes with aerial roots look okay to him. Hayato tells her that they haven't had a lot of rain lately, so they probably just need more water. He clarifies that it is okay anyway, since they aren't sick, and this won't affect the vegetables at all. Mitake is glad to hear that, and Hayato then discreetly asks Haruki if she's okay. She assures him that everything's fine, and explains that Mitake is nice and they're garden buddies now. Hayato is partly relieved, but he clarifies that's not the only thing, and he's talking about the sun, because she could get a nasty sunburn if she isn't careful. Haruki tells him that she could ask him the same thing, and then suddenly lifts his shirt to check him out, noticing that he's still a nice pasty white. She then decides to feel him up a little, which makes Mitake panic and get all flustered. She nervously tells them that it's lovely that they are such close friends, but she also reminds them that they're outside right now, and she doesn't think they should be doing anything dirty out here. Mitake runs away in panic before they can say anything, so Hayato blames Haruki and says that he didn't even get a chance to give her his club application. situation. Haruki does feel a little responsible for that, so she tells him that she'll talk to her later to straighten things out. Sometime later, during lunch break, Kazuki approaches Hayato to ask him what he's doing for lunch. Hayato quickly tells him that he has no intention of eating with him and asks him why he's getting so comfortable already. He doesn't understand what this guy wants with him, since he knows he's still got a thing for Haruki. Kazuki glances at her for a moment, and just as Hayato turns him down, Haruki aids him and explains that they have an appointment today. This takes Hayato by surprise, but she doesn't elaborate and simply drags him out of the classroom. Kazuki asks her how long she thinks it will take, wanting to know if she minds if he waits here until they finish. Haruki explains that they're cleaning the library storage room, and it will likely take some time, so she would suggest he find another companion today. Hayato doesn't understand what's going on, and he's seriously starting to wonder what Haruki is doing with her camouflage lately. Once they leave, Kazuki gives up, but he's still very curious about how he's able to get her to drop that ridiculous act of hers. Sometime later, as they clean the library storage room, Hayato asks her what's going on with her today, since she's been out of character, and he thought she wanted to stay camouflaged. Haruki confesses that she's been having some second thoughts recently, that maybe she doesn't need to keep it up anymore. She's not sure if this makes sense, but she wants to try a bunch of new things, and she wants to change. Haruki nervously dismisses her own confession, and then continues organizing some books, but she suddenly loses balance and falls from the step stool. Hayato reacts immediately, and gets in the way to break her fall, which easily knocks the wind out of him. He's glad to see that she's okay anyway, but he still can't move much, so he asks her if he can stay like this for a minute. Haruki is technically sitting on his lap, but she tells him that it doesn't bother her. Just then, they hear two voices coming from the library, and the girl says that it looks like it's empty. They soon realize that the other voice is Kazuki, who tells her that they're not allowed to eat lunch in the library. The girl tells him that they can still kiss, at least, since nobody else is there, and Kazuki doesn't deny it and decides to kiss her. Hayato asks Haruki what they should do, but to his surprise, Haruki suddenly screams and runs away from him in panic, clearly flustered and nervous. For the rest of the day, she continues acting nervous around him for some reason, but a girl called Emma Isami asks him to leave this one to her, and then drags Haruki outside along with her friends to interrogate her. Mori apologizes to Hayato for his girlfriend's behavior and reveals that he's been dating Emma for about 3 months. He explains that they've been friends since kindergarten, and he thought he knew everything about her, but he realized he was mistaken. Mori mentions that dating her has revealed a lot of new sides of her to him, and the more time they spend together, the more they start to learn about each other. With that in mind, he asks Hayato if they want to come out and hang with them sometime. Hayato likes that idea, but he wonders where in the world they could safely take the new Haruki. When he gets back home, Haruki welcomes him while wearing the new apron she bought and explains that she's been too much of a burden on him recently, so she's decided to start doing what she can to help out. That's why, from now on, she hopes he allows her to help with the cooking and other housework, because she can't let him take care of everything. Hayato is clearly surprised at first, but he easily agrees, since she seems like she really wants to help out. During dinner, he tells her that if she's free next weekend, they could go out somewhere. Without a doubt, Haruki agrees and ditches whatever she has to do that day, asking him where they'll go. None of them have any idea of where to go, though, so Himeko proposes an idea, saying that they should go to the movies. After all, there is a movie theater housing an auditorium with an enormous screen that can accommodate a maximum of 768 viewers all at once, which is more than half of Tsukinosa's population. Even Hayato is shocked to hear that, and the two of them are excited about the idea. Haruki realizes just then that Himeko is coming with them, and Himeko cheerfully confirms it, saying that it's been too long since the three of them have gone somewhere together. The next day on his way to school, Hayato is still thinking about their plans because he still remembers how they always used to run around going on little adventurers. Kazuki casually runs into him and greets him, though Hayato doesn't look too happy to see him. While they walk, they also run into some other students, and Kazuki keeps a smiley face as he greets each one of them. Hayato finds this a little strange, so he waits until they're alone again to confront him, telling him that when he's pleasing the crowd with all that fan service, it makes him look like some idol. He soon realizes that this feels like some kind of deja vu, and tells him that this is exactly what people call wearing a sweet mask, because he puts on a nice face for everyone, but also keeps them at arm's length. Hayato thinks that it reminded him of Haruki, and he doesn't know why Kazuki chose to act like that, but he doesn't really care. After all, everyone's got their own problems, and he doesn't want to get too involved. He suddenly stops walking when he notices that Kazuki stayed behind, thinking about his words. The moment he realizes, Kazuki quickly catches up and tells Hayato that he's actually a decent guy, though this only weirds him out a little. Despite this, Kazuki just laughs and decides to tell him the truth, letting him know that the rumors are just rumors, and that he's not interested in Haruki like that, so he has nothing to worry about. This takes Hayato by surprise, so he nervously clarifies that he never said there was anything between him and Haruki. Kazuki clearly doesn't completely believe that, and mentions that Haruki always drops that crazy shape-shifting act just for him, which means there must be something between them. Hayato's reaction, and the fact that he doesn't deny it, lets him know that he kind of hit the nail on the head. He quickly puts that aside and suddenly challenges Hayato on a race to school, taking him by surprise. Hayato asks him if he's a child or something, but he ends up chasing after him anyway. When he gets to school, he instantly notices that Haruki looks unusually cheery today. Mitake, so he tells her that she looks like a grade schooler who's going on a field trip. Haruki feels embarrassed by the comparison, so she quickly denies it and decides to talk to Emma instead, telling her that she was hoping to get her advice. Without any explanations, Haruki walks out of the classroom with Emma and her friends, and Hayato simply knows that she's up to no good. Once they leave, Mori decides to tease Hayato a little, telling him that they apparently stole his girlfriend. Hayato gets a little flustered and tells him that Haruki isn't his girlfriend, but Mori clarifies that he was talking about his girl, Emma. He quickly apologizes when he notices that Hayato actually got a little grumpy for that, and explains that Emma has been asking him for advice on how to become friends with Haruki. After all, Haruki always has her walls up, and she doesn't have any close friends, since she's kind of aloof. However, she seems to have changed recently, so it's starting to look like it might work out. Hayato agrees, but he asks him if he's really cool with that, wanting to know how he'd feel if Haruki gets her hands on his girl. Mori tells him that he'll just be glad if she can finally make more friends, and Hayato remembers once again that everyone's got their own problems. As soon as the last class ends, Haruki immediately leaves with Emma, telling her that they should try that shop she mentioned. Hayato can't help but smile at her as she leaves, even though he has no idea what she's up to. His smile soon disappears when he gets a phone call from his father, and he later has to pick up a package for his mother. It's apparently an embroidery kit, so he assumes it's for her rehab exercises, which makes him wonder why his father didn't deliver it himself. Having no other choice, he goes to the hospital, which kind of looks like a prison. When he sees his mother though, she's happily doing Mitake's hair for some reason, saying that even people with hard-to-manage hair can find the perfect hairstyle, and she's in good hands. Mitake is clearly nervous and embarrassed by this whole thing, but her grandfather Nagahisa seems pleased, and tells Hayato's mother that this is very nice of her. After a few seconds, Mitake's hair is nicely done, and even she doesn't recognize herself due to how different she looks. Nagahisa happily exclaims that his granddaughter has turned into a real looker, though Hayato still doesn't understand what's going on. When his mother notices his presence, she sees that he has brought something for her apparently. Mitake gets even more nervous when she sees Hayato standing there, and her grandfather isn't too happy to see him. Hayato's mother, Mayumi, asks him what he thinks, saying that Mitake looks really cute with this hairstyle. Hayato easily agrees, which makes Mitake panic, but Nagahisa gets defensive and asks him what he's doing hitting on his granddaughter. Before the situation escalates, Hayato clarifies that he's here because his father asked him to bring something. He hands his mother the package, but her hand drops it as soon as he lets go of it. She quickly picks it back up like it's not a big deal, and explains that this still happens to her sometimes, but she thanks him for the present anyway, saying that she can't wait to use this for her rehab. She then asks Mitake if she'd mind if she did her hair again sometime, since that also helps with her rehab. Mitake nervously tells her that she doesn't mind, so Mayumi lets her know that she's glad because her daughter doesn't let her touch hers anymore. She notices that her hands look sore, but Mitake quickly explains that it's from growing vegetables and working the soil. Mayumi tells her that she has a great hand lotion and asks her if she wants her to grab some for her. Mitake doesn't know how to respond at this point because she couldn't be more nervous right now. Hayato can easily see that, so he decides to help her out and says that they should get going. Having no other choice, Mayumi says goodbye and asks Hayato to make sure Mitake gets home safely. Without wasting more time, Hayato grabs Mitake's hand to get her out of there, though Nagahisa immediately protests when he sees that. Hayato and Mitake ignore all his protests and get on the elevator, still holding hands. He quickly lets go and apologizes when he realizes, but he notices that Mitake is still pretty flustered as they wait for the elevator to reach the ground floor. Hayato takes a moment to properly see what his mother did with her hair, and he realizes that a new hairstyle can really change the way a girl looks. He decides to apologize for how pushy his mother is, and Mitake tells him that she really doesn't mind, but she also mentions that she didn't realize his mother was in the hospital. Hayato admits that was the reason he transferred here in the first place, and now Mitake understands why he has to cook and stuff. Putting that aside, Hayato tells her that if she doesn't want her mother messing with her hair, then he can talk to her. However, Mitake is not even listening to him, and she gathers the courage to tell him that he can just ask if there's anything she can do to help, because she knows that life must be difficult right now. This clearly takes him by surprise, so Hayato tells her that he can't exactly think of anything right now, but he'll let her know if something comes up. Mitake informs him that she's really good with household things and paperwork and stuff, so this time it'll be her turn to help him. Hayato doesn't know what she means by that, so she nervously explains that he has taught her a lot about growing vegetables. This helps him understand better, so Hayato accepts and tells her that he won't hesitate to ask when the time comes, which makes her really happy. The way Mitake smiles suddenly brings a sour memory to Hayato's mind, and he can't help but remember his little sister crying while their mother was lying on the floor. He doesn't know why that memory came to his mind just now, and it clearly makes him feel sick, so much that Mitake gets worried about him due to how pale he looks all of a sudden. Despite this, Hayato tries his best to smile and reassure her, simply saying that the gloomy hospital atmosphere got to him. The two of them decide to get out of the hospital, though they soon find out that it's pouring outside. Fortunately, Mitake lets him know that she brought a folding umbrella, so they use that to walk back home together. As they walk, Mitake mentions that it's tough when a family member you see every day suddenly isn't at home anymore. Hayato doesn't know what to say to this, so he just changes the subject subject and decides to praise her hairstyle, saying that it looks great on her. He doesn't leave it at that though, and also tells her that he thinks it's even cuter than her normal look. Mitake gets really flustered by that, but Hayato doesn't notice and continues, saying that with her hair up, it lends her entire silhouette a smart, pretty look. He explains that the little frizzles sticking out are cute, but they also give her an air of maturity, so he honestly thinks she should stick to this hairstyle. Hayato doesn't notice the effect his words have on Mitake, and he was even going to keep going, but he soon realizes that she has turned completely red from embarrassment. Mitake is speechless for a moment, and it doesn't take long for her to run away in panic, leaving Hayato very confused. That night when he gets home, Hayato's confusion increases when he sees the strange mood in the room. Even his sister is having a hard time trying to understand Haruki's strange behavior because she's way too sparkly and happy for some reason. Haruki cheerfully greets Hayato, telling him that she was wondering what they'll enjoy for dinner tonight. Hayato doesn't question anything and hesitantly informs her that he's going to make okara croquettes. Haruki asks him if that's really okay though, because that's quite a lot of calories since it's fried food. She keeps that cheerful attitude that confuses him so much, but Hayato still doesn't mention it and lets her know that it's the type they bake, so it doesn't use oil, and he thinks it's safe. Haruki seems satisfied with that answer, so she happily runs towards the kitchen to put on her apron, saying that she'll help him prepare the meal. As soon as she leaves, Hayato quickly approaches his sister to ask her what's going on, but Himeko tells him that she also would like to know that and asks him if something happened to Haruki at school today. Hayato tells her that he has no idea, though he noticed that she did seem to be up to something. Himeko takes another look at Haruki, but the sight alone actually sends a chill up her spine, and it's the same for Hayato, so he later decides to ask her what's going on while they cook. Haruki asks him if he noticed there's something different about her today, and Hayato tells her that he obviously did, and that she even left Himeko scratching her head as well. He clearly wants to know what's up with her, but Haruki remains secretive and tells him that she won't say a thing because it is still a secret. The way she acts gives him the creeps, but Hayato forgets about it and finishes making dinner. Once the food is served, Himeko is quickly back to normal, ready to enjoy her meal. Her excitement causes her to burn her tongue though, so Hayato serves her a glass of water and then asks her if she's decided what movie she wants to see. Himeko gives it some thought and tells him that if she had to pick one, it'd be The Age of Nayuta, the one they're playing commercials for on TV. After all, it has the director of 10 Years of Solitude working with that lead actress Takura Mao again. Hayato notices Haruki's reaction when she mentions that name, so he tries to intervene to make her change her mind. However, Haruki speaks first and firmly says that she knows exactly what she wants to see, which is Faith, the motion picture, 3rd chapter. Himeko assumes that's from an anime that's on TV now, and Hayato says that there's nothing else he really wants to see, so he's fine with that. Despite this, Himeko mentions that she doesn't know anything about it besides the title, so she's not sure it is really safe to start watching from the 3rd chapter. Haruki is surprised and almost offended that she's never seen Faith, but she takes this as the perfect opportunity to talk about it. She easily forgets about the food and stands up to pour her heart out with passion, saying that it's really super interesting and super intense and really emotional. Haruki doesn't waste any time and turns the TV on to play Faith, saying that missing out on it is like living less than half of a life. She explains that the 3rd chapter is in theaters and the 1st and 2nd ones are streaming, but there are also TV series, and she personally recommends the 2nd route. Both Hayato and Himeko are completely lost at this point, but Haruki confidently exclaims that the 2nd route is godly. After all, it's not just the action scenes, but the MC's perspective on life is really moving, and there's no way they won't be crying, because she herself cried a lot. Himeko hesitantly tells her that it sounds nice, but she tries to remind her that it's dinner time right now and asks her if they can eat. Haruki doesn't listen and excitedly tells her that the 2nd season OP alone goes so hard she could eat it for breakfast, lunch, and dinner and still have more for dessert. Himeko is starting to get terrified, but when she tries to ask her brother for help, Hayato plays dumb and focuses on his food, saying that the overnight pickles turned out a little too salty today. Haruki suddenly puts her hands on her shoulders and gets even more intense, saying that she recommends she play the original game, the PC version. She clarifies that it doesn't have a lot of suggestive stuff, but the few scenes that are there are legendary. Just when she starts talking about erotic stuff, Hayato's father suddenly walks in, immediately making her panic. He's a little surprised to see her, so Hayato reminds him that he did email him about this. Haruki quickly returns to her perfect girl facade to greet him, saying that it's lovely to see him again. Both Hayato and Himeko are creeped out by this, but they decide not to say anything and finally finish their meal. Hayato's father, Kirishima, tells Haruki that she's certainly changed, so she reminds him that it's been 7 years after all. He asks her if things have been alright with Hayato and Himeko, and Haruki tells him that they've been very kind to her. Unable to stand her good girl facade any longer, Hayato decides to interrupt her by pinching her cheeks, asking her what's up with the sudden good manners. He reminds her what she was talking about just before his father walked in and continues stretching her face, so Himeko panics and tries to tell him that he can't do that to a girl's face. His father also gets a little concerned, but that's when Haruki fights back and pinches Hayato's cheek as well. The two of them make themselves suffer for a while, but they're both surprised when Hayato's father laughs at the scene. He tells them that it's nice to see that they're still such good friends, even after 7 years. Hayato and Haruki quickly pull away from each other, kind of flustered by the realization. Hayato changes the topic and offers his father some dinner, since they do have some food left. Kirishima accepts, but Himeko says that she's had her fill of these two for the night and decides to go to her room. Hayato goes to the kitchen to serve another plate, so Haruki panics when she realizes she's been left alone with his father. After all, Kirishima knows about her family, so she doubts he thinks very highly of her. This makes her a little nervous, but to her surprise, Kirishima suddenly tells her that he wants to thank her, because he hasn't seen Hayato this happy in a very long time. Haruki is a little confused by this, but before she can ask him about it, Hayato returns with a tray of food for his father. Kirishima thanks him and mentions that he heard he brought the package to his mother in the hospital, which really helps. When he notices Haruki's surprise, he realizes that Hayato didn't tell her anything. Hayato quickly tries to change the subject, so his father smiles and says that he now understands that he must really think Haruki's special after all. This gets the two of them flustered, but Kirishima explains that Hayato didn't tell Haruki about his mother because he didn't want to pull on her heartstrings and make her worry about him. Not wanting to hear anything else, Hayato tells Haruki that he'll go ahead and walk her home, and she nervously accepts. Before she leaves, Kirishima tells her that she's free to stop by any time, and he even says that maybe they should just give her a spare key. Haruki couldn't be more flustered at this point, especially because Hayato decided to take her hand on the way out. As they walk back home, she mentions that he hasn't asked her about anything, so Hayato explains that it's the same as the old days. He never knew what was going on in her family, or why she didn't come to school after all. And now, 7 years later, they lost a lot of time between them, and they have both changed a lot. Haruki is aware of this, and Hayato knows that he'd by lying to say that it didn't bother him, but even then, he enjoys hanging out with her, so it never really got in the way. He simply tells her that he never thought it was something he needed to ask, and he guesses it's the same now, so it's just what it is. Haruki can't help but laugh, asking him what he means by that, but Hayato just asks her to give him a break and continues walking. The moment she realizes, Haruki quickly catches up and takes his hand, asking him to wait. She then confesses that she thinks he's pretty special too, taking him by surprise. Hayato doesn't have much to say to that, but after this confession, he doesn't let go of her hand as they walk back home.